Continuing to talk on the topic of grief today, somebody who has certainly experienced, I would say, more than her fair share and has written a book on the topic and has been such a shoulder to lean on for so many people who've also faced difficult circumstances. Tanya Unkovic, kia ora, thank you for your time.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, I just wanted to unpack the concept of grief because, look, for some people when they think of grief, that's saying, hey, that's what happens when somebody dies. That's a grieving process, and I understand it's got so many stages, and that's how that works. But something which I know that you know only too well is grief is so much broader than that, and some of the things that people may be struggling with is actually a type of grief, but they've never labelled it as such. They've never recognised that that's a type of grief in their life.
Yes, and what happens is, sadly, is they label themselves as weak, or they think something's wrong with them without recognising that they're actually grieving. And like you say, it could be any type of life circumstance that is bringing up sadness or extreme grief for you. And it could be the loss of a dream. Maybe there was something amazing that you were dreaming of, like a child, and you're struggling to conceive a child.
Yep.
Then that is a massive grief for many couples out there. It's so real. The end of a relationship, you are grieving that. And some people, when they don't grieve it properly, they go into another relationship and they take the same issues with them without grieving. So as you say, there are so many things in life that we grieve, and I believe that it's important that we acknowledge it and recognize it and allow ourselves to feel it.
It's kind of like our emotional response to life not turning out the way that we expected it to, or whether that's through as you say, broken relationship, grief of separation, or even like a lost opportunity, or the grief of regret, of saying, gosh, I wish I could go back and make that different. And that in itself is a grieving process.
It absolutely is. And I invite everyone to forgive themselves if they made a wrong decision or a not so good decision.
Yeah.
It was the decision you made at the time with what you understood. But, all decisions, whether they are right or not so good, lead us on a path, and then we can make another decision. So we really do have to forgive ourselves for whatever suffering we're choosing to carry with that. That's very, very important. And then to go, okay, well, from this day forward, things will be different. I will decide differently, or I will take different actions.
When it comes to this type of grief, when it comes to this particular grief process, is it the same? Is it similar to the traditional stages of grief, for example?
Well, when we talk about the stages of grief, you go through the denial and the anger and the bargaining with God, and then eventually you end up to a point of acceptance and then making choices in your life. When you've been through the bereavement, the death of a partner, a spouse, a child, whatever, then, this is something that, do you ever get over it? You learn to live with it, and you live differently, and you process your grief, and you have to somehow find it in yourself to move forward or move on with your life and live your life. When you're grieving, say, the loss of a relationship, that is very similar, but there is it's very different in that you can actually go, right, I'm definitely putting a line in the sand here, and I'm going to move forward. So I think there's a difference in being able to put that line in the sand. So many people who are grieving the loss of a loved one, there's no way in the world you want to put a line in the sand because you don't want to forget them or anything like that. So can you see the difference there?
Yes, no, certainly. And although I have friends who have said, honestly, it would be easier if the person who died, because I suppose with a broken relationship, there's always that hope of restoration, which may or may not ever happen. But there is, I suppose, a healing process in saying this person isn't coming back, I can draw a line. The grieving process takes a different form, would you say?
Yes, and that's where I say go straight to acceptance. Find it in yourself to go straight to acceptance because the sooner you can accept a situation or your life as it is, the sooner you will allow yourself and give yourself permission to take steps in living again. And that is why I always say, find it in yourself, whether it be through prayer
Hmm.
or journaling or speaking to someone else. Accept what is. And sometimes you need to go into a place of acceptance in bite-sized bits, 24 hours at a time. I'm going to get up today knowing this person is still alive somewhere, but I'm going to choose to live for me today. So...
And for some people, I suppose, just recognizing, okay, this is a grieving process. That could be a light bulb moment and go, oh, okay, so this is what I'm feeling at the moment. Being able to, I suppose, name it and say, hey, this is the emotion that is affecting at the moment, not let that necessarily dictate or control, but to give ourselves some grace and go, hey, actually, this is a grieving process. I should allow myself to heal, but not get stuck in that grieving process, to be able to move forward, to look forward with hope to new things on the horizon.
Well, we still have to live.
Yeah.
And it's about allowing joy back into your life again, allowing happiness back into your life again. And it doesn't mean that you're letting go of memory or you're letting go of people. It means you're allowing yourself to live and feel the happiness again, knowing that grief will come back. It's like a tsunami, it's a cycle. And just accepting that I'm going to learn how to live with all of this variety of emotions and not place any meaning on it or on the meaning of the one you have just lost.
Yeah.
And also, the other thing, so many people come to me with all sorts of presenting issues. And when we dig a bit deeper, then they find that they are grieving. But what they've been doing is they've been covering up that grief. Even it might just even be the loss of a job. Or maybe, I feel like I'm losing my looks. I feel like I'm getting older. They might be
grief of aging
that,
yeah, exactly.
the grief of aging.
Yeah.
But what they're finding that they're doing is they're soothing themselves. They're covering up that grief with food, alcohol, and all sorts of other things that are not serving them. And once we scrape all that off the surface, we find there's sadness underneath.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. As you say, that is part of the process, and the techniques and the strategies that can help us when we are facing, I suppose, let's call it traditional grief, also apply to these circumstances. I would encourage people as well, though, the book From Grief to Greatness, some wonderful, practical, personal tools on how to deal with this, and the techniques and things that you talk about in that book. They apply to a broad range of situations. If somebody is going through this at the moment, or they know somebody who seems to be stuck in grief of any type, this would be a wonderful resource to help them take that next step, to help them move forward?
Well, everything I've written in the book, I've experienced, or I use it with my clients. So it's about adversity, facing adversity head on and going, I own you. I'm going to live my life, and I'm deciding to do that today.
And I know so many people have been helped by those strategies. Tanya, if people wanted to get hold of a copy of the book, or of course lots of other wonderful resources, many of them free, that's all available through your website?
Yes, it is, tanyaunkovich.com.